folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Alright guys, here we go. We are going to talk spoilers for Halloween Ends, and thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. And this week we are doing another movie review, and this is my spoiler-filled review of Halloween Ends. We're going to get into it here. We got a lot to talk about, because, oh my god, like, the big swings that David Gordon Green's for, the balls he shows, the decisions he made are kind of polarizing in the end. You know, it's like, oh, I like that, but why did he do that? No, and then, there's one scene with Michael Myers, I'm like, no. Those are the kind of reactions you're going to have while watching this. You're going to be like, oh, you know, it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, as I said in my spoiler-free review, the film was very middle of the road for me. It's 50-50, half and half, very uneven. So many things I liked, so many things I did not like, and there's no in between, you know. It's kind of crazy. But yes, the film stars, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis returning one last time as Laurie Strode, Andy Matichak as Allison, James Jude Courtney as the Shape Michael Myers, and Will Patton, Kyle Richards as Lindy Wallace. Yeah. So we get a lot of those returning characters from the last two films, and of course, as I told you in the spoiler-free, a new character, Corey Cunningham, who is this babysitter who, you know, he got in some trouble with the child he was babysitting, and an accident happened, and it was tragic, and it was horrific. You know, that opening scene really got me, and I have to say that was probably my favorite part of the movie. You know, that was the most intense, like, oh wow, shocking too, you know, and it was actually scary. And that's something that's kind of been missing with this series. It hasn't really been scary per se. It's been bloody, brutal, and violent, but scary not so much. But this scene I felt was scary, and it was shocking and intense. I was like, wow, they're really going there, you know. Wow. But yeah, so what happens is, we are talking spoilers now. Now, what happens with this kid? He's kind of a punk, kind of a little, you know, he acts out a little bit, you know, he gives Corey a hard time, but what happens is, for a minute, he disappears, and Corey's looking all over the house for him, you know. Oh no, oh my god, you know, I lost this kid, he left the house, where'd he go, you know, did he run away, you know, and he freaks out, you know, and so he's looking all over the house, he looks upstairs, and then the kid kind of pushes him in this dark room and locks him in, and he just freaks out. And you wonder if this guy, Corey, wasn't that tightly wrapped to begin with. Could the way he reacts from being locked in a room, it's like, what's going on with this guy? Why would you freak out that much from someone just playing a little trick on you? A little kid playing a trick on you? I mean, it's a bit much. But so he starts freaking out. He starts kicking the door in. He's kicking and kicking and kicking. And he kicks the door, and the kid's right behind it, and the kid falls over this huge balcony, stairs, maybe a 150-foot drop, you know, and the kid dies, and his blood all over the floor, and his parents come in, you know, and it's like horrifying, you know. But it's crazy. I like that scene, though. That was really well directed and scary and intense, but it's a little weird, though. It's like, is there something wrong with this guy to begin with there, or what? What's going on with this character? But of course, things go a lot worse for him, you know. Everyone in town blames him for what happened. The parents absolutely hate him, you know, but he did get off. You know, the charges were dropped. They saw it as an accident, and he got off. And he's roaming the streets, and people don't like him, you know. He's like the town freak, like I was saying. The funny thing is he gets bullied by these, like, teenage kids, you know. They try to get him to buy alcohol for him, and then they go, like, he won't do it, and they're like, oh, you're that kid that killed the guy, you killed the little kid, you know, and they start bullying him and pushing him around. I'm like, dude, you're 25-year-old grown man, and you got these little, like, teenagers up. Like, I'd be tossing them all. I'd be tossing these kids left and right. Are you kidding me? It's just kind of funny, you know. They, like, beat him up and stuff. They throw him over the railing at one point, and he falls, like, 50 feet in the air. And he kind of stumbles upon the lair of Michael Myers. He finds out where Michael's been hiding out for the past 4 years. What was he doing in that 4 years, by the way? Was he just laying there? You know, he's just living in the sewer. I don't know, you know. What was he doing all that time? But they don't really say anything about it. But he looks rough, you know, and he is where people are going to have a lot of problem with the way they handle Michael Myers. Probably the biggest problem that people are going to have is he's... At the end of Halloween Kills, we saw, you know, that the townsfolk, you know, tricked him and, you know, and they surrounded him, you know. You know, Karen and Sheriff Brackett and Tommy Doyle and all those people, you know, with their bats and their pitchforks, and it's like a lynch mob, you know, and they shoot him, they beat him with a baseball bat, they stab him, they really mess him up. So we see that really has taken a toll on Michael. Michael's really broken and beaten down, you know, he's out of shape, you know. And he's really feeling his age at this point, because Michael is in his 60s, maybe even close to 70 at this point. He's like a broken down old man, kind of, you know, like, even though he is the shape Michael Myers that we saw in the original Halloween, you know. And it's kind of almost a little bit of a stretch because of how strong he was in the past two movies, especially Kills, you know. He was like a supernatural evil entity, like this monster just slaying everyone in town and just eviscerating people, you know, and blood flying, splattering everywhere. Even after he gets beaten to a bloody pulp and shot and stabbed, he still gets up and slays everyone brutally, you know. And it's like, so it's almost like a bit of a stretch to see him this weakened state. You know, we've never seen Michael this vulnerable before, which is interesting. But a lot of people might have a problem with that, you know. They see Michael as this indestructible slasher villain, you know, this monster, the boogeyman, this shape, this evil force of nature. And that's where I have a little problem with it too, you know, at certain points, you know. And yeah, I can understand that he would be really beat up and messed up, but, you know, because, yeah, they did do a number on him, but still he's, you know, you see him as this mythological figure, Michael Myers, the icon of horror, you know. It's like, so it's really weird. I mean, we did see a little of that if you go back to Halloween 5. I know everybody hates Halloween 5, but that's kind of a movie where we did see a little bit of that vulnerability because, you know, after the events of Halloween 4, Michael got shot up brutally, you know, by kind of a lynch mob again, you know, shotguns and gunned down brutally, you know, and he did feel the effects of that in part 5, and he had to, like, hibernate for a year, if you recall. So as much as you guys want to diss Halloween 5, there's a little bit of a Halloween 5 in here. Yeah. But anyway, another thing is with Corey's character is what a lot of people suspected, you know, when the trailers came out. You know, you Halloween fans are so hardcore when a trailer comes out and you see a little glimpse of something and you dissect it, and I gotta give you guys credit, you were right. Corey Cunningham is the copycat killer of Michael Myers, you know. that is where they went with it. You know, eventually it was kind of a bit of a slow burn descent into that, but you know, as I said, he goes down the dark path and he starts doing some bad things, and you know, eventually becomes full-blown murderer, you know. And it's kind of funny, he puts on this mask and he's got the mechanic's jumpsuit because he is actually a mechanic, that's his job. But he puts on this Halloween mask, it's like a scarecrow, it's kind of cheesy, but I can't help but think, wow, Michael Myers' sidekick, you know. It's kind of funny at times because he goes with Michael on a little bit of a killing spree. They go together, you know, and Michael, at one point it's almost like Michael when he kills somebody and stabs him up against the wall. Yeah, there's one scene that's very reminiscent of the Bob kill in the original 1978 Halloween. But Michael almost, like, turns his head to, like, show him how he did it, like, what he's doing. So it's like, he's literally, like, training him how to be a killer, you know? It's kind of crazy and wild, but it's interesting at the same time. Like, it's something different, you know? And a lot of people are going to be pissed off at that, and a lot of people are going to be like, oh, what are you doing? You know? But some people might like it. Some people might find it interesting, something different. And I'm torn on that aspect of this version of Michael Myers. Michael Myers still played so well by James Jude Courtney. And that's like why I said before, I was very happy to see his name and like the top credits, you know, with Jamie Lee Curtis and Annie Matichak and stuff. That was like, wow, giving him his due, you know, finally a Michael Myers actor gets his due, you know. Because in the earlier movies, he'd be way down in the credits, you know. But it's the way the Michael Myers character is portrayed, the direction they go with him, which is very, very different. And kind of jarring at times, you know. There's one scene that I like laughed, straight up laughed with Michael Myers when he gets his first kill after being, you know, because for a while he was so messed up he couldn't like get around to doing it. But Corey brings in this guy that he hates, that he got into a fight with, because he was kind of harassing Allison's character. Because as I said, Allison and Corey are dating, you know. But he brings him to Michael's lair, and Michael stabs him once, and then he's like starting to feel it a little bit, and he stabs him again. He's like, oh, this is working for me. This is starting to work for me. Maybe I still got it, you know, like an old man playing a sport, and he can still hit well, you know. He's like, boo, boo, and he starts jabbing him with a knife, and at one point he starts like feeling, and he starts shaking like, ugh. You know, I'm like, oh my god, what is this? Are you serious? It was almost like seeing a superhero movie, something like Thor getting his power from grabbing the hammer or the battle axe thing, you know. It's like hilarious. And I'm gonna say a couple different movies that this film gave me vibes of, and surprisingly, one of them was Freddy versus Jason. You know, him getting the power. He's not quite strong enough, and he has to get the power, you know, and that's where Jason comes in. He gets Jason to start killing people, and as Jason starts killing people, Freddy gets the power to come back out again, and that's what this kind of reminded me of. Like, as the more people Michael kills, he gets more power, you know, and more strength. And I just thought that was kind of funny. So I didn't quite like that. I thought it was kind of laughable. And it was a weird thing seeing Michael Myers like that, because all we know of Michael Myers, we always know him as this unstoppable force of nature, force of evil, you know. And it's just weird seeing that, you know. And then we see him interacting with Corey. It's kind of offsetting too, because we never really see any emotion out of Michael. He's just like a blank stare, a blank slate, you know, and he's doing these weird things, you know. It's just kind of puts you off. It kind of it's just jarring, And then, yes, they have, and like I said, the things with the changes in Annie Matichak's character, Allison, are strange, She's acting out, she's rebelling against Laurie Strode, She's going against everything she was in the first two movies. She's just being free-spirited and doing whatever she wants, and she's with this kind of shady guy, and like I said, at one point he tells her he killed somebody, and she barely reacts. It's like weird. Although her performance is very good. She's very good in the film, so... Again, middle of the road with this movie. And same thing with Jamie Lee. Her performance is great. And it's nice seeing that other side to her, but it's like, well, how can you move on with your life? It's like infuriating. How can you move on with your life when this man killed your daughter? He killed everyone in town, and you were this badass hero in the 2018 movie. You were like Sarah Connor with the guns, and you're like, bring him on. And here, she's very subdued, and it's a great performance, but it's like, what? It's almost a little bit too extreme with her character, although, and let's talk about the big battle that was promised in the trailer, that final epic confrontation between Michael and Laurie, and it does kind of happen. So what leads up to it is, with Corey Cunningham, we start to see a little him getting in the full Michael regalia. He takes Michael's mask and he goes around basically as Michael Myers, stalking people and killing people. There's one nasty kill with a guy at the radio station, the DJ. Man, when she grabs him and bashes his head against the radio, and he cuts his tongue out. And then the tongue is sitting on top of the record player, spinning around. It's like... It's hilarious. You see the guy's tongue rolling around with the record. It's hilarious. Yeah, that was an awesome kill. That was something really cool. And yeah, this movie definitely doesn't skimp on the gore. I wouldn't say it's as brutal as the past two movies. Even the first 2018 one was a little bit more brutal, but... Except at the end. I'll say at the end, they really go for it. The ending is brutal, but the difference is the ending is what's getting done to Michael Myers, not all his victims. It's what happens to Michael Myers, the way he is. Might as well get into it. Michael Myers is killed. Yes, so... Halloween Ends is appropriate in this movie, and that's one of the things I always said is I do want the franchise to end at some point, and yeah, David Gordon Green has the balls to end Michael Myers, and it's a very definitive ending. What happens to him is you're not going to believe it, It's brutal. But yeah, the thing that bothers me most about it, I like that aspect. I think that's ultimately what should happen to Michael. They need to get him in the end and end him once and for all and take him out for good. And that's what happens here. But the way it happens is what I have a problem with. As I said, this is a much different version of Michael. He's more vulnerable. And then something we see with Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis pulls off his mask, and we see that he's, an old man. He's scarred, he's burned, he's beaten, he's broken. This is a very broken, vulnerable Michael Myers, and she says, she grabs a knife, I thought you were always the boogeyman. I always thought that, but it turns out you're just a man, and she slices his throat, and then, as he's about to die, he does give one last grasp at Laurie, chokes her out, and it looks like he's gonna finally get her, but then, Allison comes in and saves her, and together they absolutely destroy him. They stab the shit out of him, they break his arm off, he's basically crucified to the table, they knife his hands in, he can't move, they dump the refrigerator on him so he can't move, and there's nowhere for him to go. He's just a sitting duck, and what happened, and you see him bleed. So at the end of the day, guys, you've got to give David Gordon Green some credit. He delivered on the premise of Halloween Ends, because it ends here. There's no coming back for Michael Myers after this. There was a definitive ending to not only this trilogy, but I feel the franchise. Could someone come and reboot it, remake it, and start the whole of the thing over again? Yeah, it's possible. But should they? No, I don't think so. I think this is the definitive end. Michael Myers is dead. Jamie Lee Curtis had her swan song, and she's going to move on with her life, and that's it. Allison moved to some other town. She left Haddonfield. She's gone. Everyone has moved on. Haddonfield's going to move on. It's all over. Do I enjoy the ending? Is it kind of a hollow ending? It is for me, in a way. I like the Jamie Lee Curtis send-off and everything, and I like certain aspects of the send-off from Michael. I do think that's how he should have been taken out, yes. But it's just the fact that we find out that all along, for 40 years, we thought he was this boogeyman, this kind of evil, unstoppable force, but now we find out he's just a man, and all along he was just a man who was this psychotic murderer, this psychotic maniac, similar to a lot of the real-life killers like, John Wayne Gacy and Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy, and that's kind of what Rob Zombie was doing in his remake and all that. And so yeah, there's some little bit of similarity there. It turns out all along he was just a human being. And that's a little bit disappointing when you're a Michael Myers fan, when you're a fan of that character. It's hard to just accept that, but now we have to accept it. He was just a man, and that's it. He was killed, gone, done with. So, what do you guys think? What do you think about this movie? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Very interesting to hear people's opinions on this one, because, man, it just invokes some strong opinions and strong thoughts for me. It's very emotional for me. I've been a fan of this franchise for so long, my entire life practically, and to see it all go down, to see it all end, it is very emotional, and I've been attached to these characters, Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, for so long. It's hard to see it go. It's hard to say goodbye. It's very intense, but it's a little bit hollow for me. It's a little bit empty for me, but he had the balls to do it. So, like I said, David Gordon Green, I give him credit for making a very different Halloween with a very different story, and for finally ending the franchise. Am I completely happy with the movie? No, it's very middle of the road, but I'm glad that they finally had the sack to end it once and for all. So that's my thoughts, guys. That's my spoiler-filled review for Halloween Ends, and thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Folks, don't forget to grab your Sean Patrick Urshan gear and represent the Horror Corner. Also, check out these awesome mugs we have, perfect for your coffee. And definitely check out the Horror Hangout live stream t-shirt and represent the legacy of the Horror Hangout. Check out the link in the description below this video.